Hello everybody and welcome back to the Protestant Education channel. Today we're going to be talking about church jurisdiction and how Protestants understand church jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is a very difficult thing to talk about, and so in this video I'm going to kind of attempt to do my best understanding of the Protestant articulation of jurisdiction. So, we have a very different understanding of jurisdiction than our other traditions. But what is jurisdiction? It's basically the power to do stuff. Usually, when we talk about jurisdiction, we're talking about like a law enforcement context. In this case, it has more to do with who has the power to do stuff where. Usually in reference to building churches, planting churches, organizing ministries, all that kind of stuff. The reason that we kind of want to be aware of jurisdiction and think about it is because Paul tells us not to plant on another man's soil in reference to starting churches. And this idea of a schism that is core to the Protestant identity, the accusation that we schismed from the Catholic Church, is also kind of important to keep in mind here. So, all of that said, how do Protestants understand jurisdiction? So, we tend to look at jurisdiction as a national concern. So, Reformed is a great example. There's the Presbyterian Church, the PCUSA, right? They are responsible for Presbyterian ministry in the United States. Okay, cool, simple enough. In the same tradition, or adjacent tradition, I guess, you have the Dutch Reformed, who are also Reformed, also come from Calvin. However, all their stuff is based in the Netherlands. Or you have the Scottish Reformed, the descendants of John Knox's church, who do all their stuff in Scotland. So it's not a crazy thing here. And the Episcopal Church as well. I think the Anglicans and Episcopalians kind of have the best articulation of Protestant jurisdiction because they understand it stops at the country. So the Anglican Church is in communion with the Episcopal Church, but it can't exercise authority over the Episcopal Church. And that's kind of what we're trying to avoid in the Protestant tradition in general. We're trying to avoid this sole monolithic ipso facto able to make any decision about whatever. And in the modern times, we kind of get lost in like what the Pope's powers were. Way back when the Reformation was going on, the Pope did have a lot of political power, and that was kind of the main concern of the Protestant reformers. Among, all the theological issues as well, but a main concern for them too was the political power of the papacy that was being exercised at the time, affecting international politics, and that's kind of why they were like, no, the church stops at the nation. Even in the United Methodist Church, we have churches that are not in America, that are overseas, but the United Methodist Church in America, our stuff doesn't affect those churches out over in Africa and all of that. So what jurisdiction ultimately comes down to is, again, who has the power to do what? So we believe that if you are part of the Protestant tradition and there isn't a Protestant church going on there, then you are free to build one. If not, then you are not free to build one. It's really that simple, and that also kind of ties into a lot of the classical Protestant issue with a lot of evangelicalism, where Catholics have a much more rigid understanding of jurisdiction. Evangelicals have a much looser understanding of jurisdiction, where evangelicals tend to say that jurisdiction stops at the congregation. So, and this is assumption. I've never heard an evangelical say this, so let me take this next little line with a grain of salt. But I would assume that, if I was going to start my evangelical church right next to another evangelical church Well, the pastor at that evangelical church would probably take an issue with that and quote the Paul verse to me. Okay, fair enough. A lot of evangelical Christianity is very defensive of this idea of schism, though. There are countless videos on why schism is wrong and sinful. I would really point to Redeem Zoomer's video because he's the person in this space that I think has done the most actual work and research into this field. I mean, I had a video early on my channel that was why classical Protestantism or what is classical Protestantism, I think it was, but I didn't really get into the schism polemics, and I really don't want to here. I mean, I'm anti-schism. I'm firmly with Zoomer on his stance, but I think he does a better job of articulating it since he's done the research. But in short, Robert Bailey said outside of excommunication or death, it's wrong. That's the simplest explanation. So for Protestants, how can we kind of argue this idea of jurisdiction? Well, for us, we rely on agreements a lot of the times. So, the Methodist Church, the UMC, for example, has a long history of absorbing different Wesleyan traditions and denominations all into one big one. The ELCA was a group of Lutheran synods that all kind of formed together. The reason that the LCMS isn't really schismatic is because it never joined the ELCA, so it didn't have anything to schism from. And so, because of that, the ELCA doesn't really go in and bother the LCMS, and the LCMS doesn't go and bother the ELCA. Now, again, I haven't done the research on that, but that is in theory how it should work. Sorry, I should have clarified that before I started going on that point. And so that's basically how we understand jurisdiction. It has a lot to do with really just our theology around anti-schism and churches' national identity. I hope I articulated that well. I hope I did a good job explaining that. But I thought that was an important video that I really wanted to get done and script out and put up, because a lot of the people in our side of the internet, the classical Protestant and mainline Protestant side of the internet, we always talk about jurisdiction, but I don't really feel like I've ever seen anybody give an articulation of jurisdiction. So this is my understanding from what I've done so far in my research and reading. Like I said, I hope I did a good job. If not, please leave a comment. Feel free to tell me what I got wrong and what I can do better next time. If there's other topics you want to see me talk about, please put those in the comments as well. I love reading those. I really liked digging into that, the Anglican theosis question from a while ago and doing the comment response video on that. And besides that, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, and have a blessed rest of your day, both you and your families.